1 minute ago, Britain changed forever. The streets outside Downing Street have exploded with chants, cheers, and rage as thousands of furious voters storm the gates, demanding their victory be honoured. Reform UK has not just won, they have crushed Labour and the Conservatives in a way no one believed possible. Nigel Farage now holds a 74-seat majority, and the entire political system is on its knees. This is not just an election result, this is a revolution in real time. The roar outside Downing Street is deafening. The people who for years were dismissed as a fringe movement are now standing at the heart of power, their banners high, their chants shaking the very walls of Westminster. This is no ordinary protest. This is no polite demonstration. This is the moment Britain's silent majority has become the loudest voice in the nation, and they are not asking for permission. They are demanding change. The iron gates of Number 10, once a symbol of distance and control, now feel like the last barrier between the old order and the tidal wave that has just crashed through British politics. Nigel Farage's gamble has paid off in a way even his closest allies could hardly imagine. Reform UK, dismissed for years as a protest party, now commands the largest majority Britain has seen in decades. 74 seats, a number so staggering that it has left Labour and the Conservatives staring into the abyss. The red wall is rubble. The Tory heartlands have been wiped clean. And the map of Britain is now painted in Reform UK's turquoise. Voters who felt abandoned, ignored and mocked have turned their fury into ballots, and those ballots have detonated the political system. Inside Westminster, panic is spreading like wildfire. Labour MPs are shell-shocked, some refusing to face cameras, others openly weeping as they leave late-night meetings. Keir Starmer's promise of stability and order has collapsed into humiliation. His image as the steady hand who could lead Britain through chaos has been reduced to dust in a single night. Rachel Reeves, once hailed as Labour's economic mastermind, gone. Angela Rayner, the voice of the working class, toppled by a reform candidate who simply promised to listen. Ed Miliband, erased from the map entirely, his legacy turned to ash. The party that once claimed to speak for the miners, the factory workers, the nurses and the builders has been rejected outright. It is not just a loss, it is a message, loud and clear. Labour has been abandoned by the very people who built it. And yet, the Conservative collapse is even more staggering. Rishi Sunak's government did not merely lose, it was annihilated. 22 seats. That is all that remains of the party that once called itself the natural party of government. The party of Churchill and Thatcher, the party that ruled Britain for generations, has been reduced to an irrelevant footnote. Senior Tories sat frozen on election night, faces pale as if they were witnessing the end of an empire because they were. Suella Braverman, Kemi Badenoch. Grant Shapps all gone. The future they once promised is now a futureless opposition. This is why the storming of Downing Street feels like more than celebration. It feels like history. Voters have not just picked a new government, they have torn down the walls of an establishment that ignored them for too long. They are chanting not for compromise, but for revolution. The air is electric, the ground almost shaking with the force of their voices. Every cheer is a warning to the elites, still hiding behind those gates. Your time is over. In television studios across London, commentators are stunned into silence. Some admit on air that they underestimated the anger that has been boiling across Britain for years. For decades, they painted Farage supporters as cranks and extremists. Tonight, those supporters are the mainstream. Farage himself stepped onto a stage before midnight, his tone defiant, his voice ringing with triumph. He told the nation that Britain is finally taking back control for real this time. And judging by the crowds outside Downing Street, the country believes him. But behind the cheers lies a growing tension. This is not just a victory. This is a promise, and promises must be kept. The voters chanting outside Number 10 are not patient. They are not polite. They want change, and they want it now. They are demanding action on immigration taxes and sovereignty. The monarchy is silent. The civil service is whispering about resistance, and global leaders are scrambling to react. The shockwaves of this election are already spreading across Europe and Washington. For them, this is a nightmare scenario. Farage in Number 10, with a majority so commanding that no spin, no sabotage, no backroom deals can undo it. Britain has not just voted. Britain has revolted. The storm outside Downing Street is only the beginning, and the world is watching to see what comes next. The scenes outside Downing Street are growing more intense by the hour. What began as cheering and chanting has now turned into a relentless occupation. Crowds are refusing to leave, waving Reform UK flags and Union Jacks under the early morning sky. The air is thick with the sound of drums, megaphones and chants of "Power to the people." For years, these voters felt invisible. Now they are the centre of everything. Their presence is not just symbolic, it is a warning to those still clinging to power. The people are no longer asking Westminster to listen, they are ordering it. Inside Number 10, the tension is unbearable. Civil servants whisper in corridors, unsure of what the new government will do. Some are frantically shredding documents, others drafting emergency briefings. Reports leak of frantic calls between Whitehall mandarins and Buckingham Palace, seeking guidance on how to handle the unprecedented shift of power. The monarchy, usually silent during moments of political drama, is said to be on edge, weighing whether to intervene or stand aside and watch the storm play out. Britain has seen many turbulent elections, but never one that felt like the beginning of a revolution. The fall of Labour has triggered a civil war inside the party. Keir Starmer has vanished from public view, fueling rumours that he is preparing to resign. His allies are turning on each other, shouting matches, breaking out behind closed doors. Shadow ministers are reportedly threatening to cross the floor, while others talk of forming a breakaway faction. What remains of Labour's once mighty base is crumbling in real time. In the party's heartlands, the betrayal runs deep. Local members admit they can no longer defend Starmer's leadership to voters who feel Labour sold them out on immigration, sovereignty, and the cost of living. The party that once stood for the working man is now seen as the party of bureaucrats and elites, and its voters have defected to Farage in numbers no one could have predicted. For the Conservatives, the collapse is even more brutal. Tory HQ is in full lockdown. The phone's ringing non-stop, donors panicking, staffers quietly packing up offices. Rishi Sunak is said to be furious but powerless, his legacy already being written as the man who presided over the death of the Conservative Party. Tory grandees have been humiliated, watching their safe seats fall one after another. For decades, they treated Reform UK as a sideshow. Now they are begging Farage for meetings, hoping to salvage whatever influence they have left. The once mighty Conservative machine, the party that ruled Britain for over a century, is finished. Its future uncertain, its brand toxic, its voters gone. Television studios across the nation are in meltdown. Commentators speak in hushed tones, trying to explain the unexplainable. Some compare it to the Brexit referendum, others to the fall of the Berlin Wall. Analysts admit that the two-party system, the foundation of British politics, has been blown apart. Newspaper front pages are filled with headlines screaming words like shock rebellion and revolution. For the first time in living memory, the old establishment press cannot spin the result. The numbers are too big, the message too clear. Britain has turned its back on the old order. Meanwhile, Farage is moving fast. His team is already working through the night, preparing their first acts in government. Reports suggest sweeping immigration reforms will be announced within days, along with plans to slash taxes and withdraw from international agreements that Farage claims have tied Britain's hands. Business leaders are panicking, warning of market chaos, but reform supporters see this as proof that the elites are scared. In working-class towns across the country, celebrations continue into the morning fireworks, cheering and pub toasts as if Britain had just won a war. And perhaps that is exactly how it feels. For years, these voters were told they were wrong, mocked as gammon, dismissed as backwards and angry. Now they have taken their revenge at the ballot box, and they are not finished. They are demanding the old establishment not just step aside, but be dismantled entirely. Their anger is not just against Labour or the Tories. It is against the entire system, the lobbyists, the civil servants, the global institutions. Reform UK has been handed the keys to Number 10, but the people chanting outside its gates are there to remind them that this victory was not given, it was taken. As morning light hits Westminster, Britain feels like a different country. The two parties that once swapped power back and forth like a game are shattered. The streets belong to the people. Foreign leaders are scrambling to understand how Britain went from cautious stability to populist revolution overnight. But the most important question is not being asked by foreign leaders or news anchors. It is being asked by the people on the streets. What happens next? Will Farage deliver everything he promised? Can a party built on rebellion actually govern? Will this moment of celebration turn into frustration if change does not come fast enough? Britain has crossed a line, and what lies ahead is uncharted territory. By midday, the energy in London has reached a fever pitch. Crowds are no longer just gathered at the gates of Downing Street, they have spilled into Whitehall, Parliament Square, and even along the bridges crossing the Thames. The atmosphere feels more like a historic festival mixed with a siege. Some are singing patriotic songs, others holding placards demanding action now, and everywhere the chants thunder. This is our country. Police have increased their presence, But there is no violence, just a deafening roar of people who feel, perhaps for the first time in decades, that Britain belongs to them again. The government may have changed hands overnight, but the mood in the streets makes it clear this is only the beginning. Inside Westminster, the drama has escalated to a point unseen in living memory. Keir Starmer is now under direct pressure from his own MPs to step down immediately. Several senior Labour figures have resigned live on air, blaming him for leading the party into total annihilation. The leaked reports from Labour headquarters grow more damning by the hour, shouting matches, open accusations of betrayal, even talk of legal battles over candidate selections. The party that once called itself the natural voice of Britain's working class has been reduced to rubble, its MPs scattered and humiliated. Some have already reached out to Farage's team, quietly offering to defect if it means political survival. The collapse is not just electoral, it is existential. The Conservative Party's nightmare is no better. In what some insiders are calling the night of the long knives, several of its biggest names have announced they are quitting politics entirely. The remaining MPs are split between those who want to rebuild and those who want to join Reform UK before it is too late. The Tory brand has become radioactive, its donor base vanishing overnight. For a party that ruled Britain for more than a century, this is nothing short of an extinction-level event. Tory HQ, once the powerhouse of British politics, is a graveyard of abandoned desks and unanswered phones. The sight of Conservative grandees losing their safe seats has become the defining image of the night, the final proof that the public has completely turned its back on them. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage is wasting no time. His first major address as Prime Minister is set to take place within hours, and insiders suggest he will announce sweeping changes that could reshape Britain within weeks. Rumours swirl of emergency legislation on border control, a complete freeze on illegal immigration, and a fast-track repeal of regulations seen as remnants of EU control. Economists warn that such dramatic moves could send financial markets into freefall. But to Farage's base, this is the whole point. They didn't vote for stability. They voted for a reckoning. Across the country, the celebrations continue, but beneath the fireworks and cheering lies a sharp edge. Many in the crowds have brought written petitions, letters, and lists of demands, pressing them into the hands of anyone in government who will listen. This is not passive support. This is an uprising with expectations. The people chanting outside Number 10 are not prepared to wait months or years to see results. They want immediate proof that their votes were not wasted, that this was not another political trick. International reaction has begun to turn from shock to alarm. The European Union is holding emergency talks about how to respond to Britain's sudden political shift, fearing a total breakdown in cooperation. Washington has issued a statement calling for calm and stability, but insiders admit privately that the White House is worried about Britain's new direction. Global markets are jittery, the pound swinging wildly, investors warning of a new era of volatility. For Farage, this is fuel for his fire. He takes to the stage at a packed rally in London, defiantly telling the crowd that the establishment is panicking because they know their time is up. The cheers that follow are deafening, but even as Farage basks in victory, there is a storm brewing. Analysts warn that this level of expectation could turn dangerous if the new government stumbles. The chants outside Downing Street, once celebratory, are beginning to sound like ultimatums. Deliver now, they cry, or we'll be back. This is a movement that has tasted victory, and victory has only made it hungrier. Farage, once the outsider, is now the ultimate insider, and with that comes pressure, unlike anything he has faced before. By late afternoon, London is a city under siege, not from violence, but from the unstoppable force of public demand. The world's cameras are fixed on Downing Street. Every word, every decision, every movement is being broadcast to millions, who are desperate to see what happens next. Britain is no longer waiting. The people have broken the old system, and now they want something entirely new. And yet, behind the triumph and the chants, a darker question lingers. What if the new system cannot deliver? What if the promises that brought millions to the polls turn out to be impossible? What happens when the people who stormed Downing Street decide that even Farage has failed them? This is the unspoken fear haunting the halls of power tonight. Not just that the old order has been destroyed, but that the new one might collapse under the weight of its own revolution. Night has fallen over Westminster, but the city refuses to sleep. Downing Street remains surrounded by a sea of people, their chants echoing off the walls of power. The air smells of smoke from fireworks, spilled beer, and the electric charge of history being made in real time. The gates of Number 10 are guarded by police standing shoulder to shoulder, yet there is no hostility, just a strange understanding that something irreversible has happened. Britain has crossed into a new era, and no one knows what dawn will bring. Inside the famous black door, Nigel Farage is pacing. He has waited his whole life for this moment, and now the weight of an entire nation sits on his shoulders. Advisors shuffle in and out with papers, phones glued to their ears as they take frantic calls from global leaders. Some plead for reassurance, others threaten consequences. Brussels has already warned of severe diplomatic ramifications if Britain tears up its obligations. Washington has offered cautious congratulations but is demanding clarity on Britain's future role in NATO and trade deals. Farage listens, nods, and waves them away. His message is clear. Britain will set its own course, no matter who it upsets. The first draft of his opening speech is brutal, uncompromising, and direct. Sources leak that Farage intends to announce emergency legislation to regain full border control, withdraw from remaining EU-era agreements, and slash foreign aid in half. He is also preparing to sack senior civil servants accused of obstructing Brexit implementation, a move that will shake Whitehall to its core. This is not tinkering around the edges, this is demolition and reconstruction on a national scale. Supporters see it as liberation, critics call it reckless. Either way, Britain is about to change forever. The monarchy is quietly watching from Windsor. Royal advisors are said to be split. Some argue the king must speak to calm the nation, others warn that any intervention risks inflaming tensions further. For now, Buckingham Palace remains silent. A silence that feels deafening as the country teeters between triumph and turmoil. Rumours swirl that a private meeting between Farage and the king has been scheduled for the next 24 hours, a meeting that could define the relationship between Crown and government for years to come. Meanwhile, the media is in a frenzy. News anchors speak with barely disguised shock as they report that Farage has summoned the heads of the military for an emergency briefing. Some speculate he may be preparing to deploy additional security to protect government buildings if protests turn into occupations. Others suggest he wants the armed forces to signal loyalty to the new government and reassure the public that order will be maintained. Whatever the reason, it adds to the sense that Britain is now living through its most volatile moment since the Second World War. Markets open in Asia and immediately plunge. The pound falls, bond yields spike, and analysts warn of economic chaos if Farage follows through with his most radical promises. Yet the scenes in Britain are the opposite of panic. Pub crowds cheer as the pound drops, seeing it as proof that the old financial elite is finally losing its grip. In working-class towns, celebrations have turned into street parties. Fireworks explode, cars honk horns, and strangers hug in the streets. This is not fear, this is euphoria. The more the global establishment warns of disaster, the more the people feel they were right all along. And yet, the pressure on Farage is immense. Every decision he makes tonight will be watched by millions, dissected by the press, and remembered for generations. The danger is clear. If he falters, if he hesitates, if he fails to deliver quickly, the same crowd cheering his name could turn on him in an instant. Revolutions are hungry, and this one is no different. The voters who just gave him a 74-seat majority are already demanding action, and they will not wait quietly if he disappoints them. As midnight approaches, Farage walks to the lectern inside number 10 for his first official address to the nation. The cameras click. The microphones hiss. The room falls silent. Outside, the chants grow quiet as the crowd waits to hear the words that will set the course of the nation. Farage stares into the lens, his face lit by the harsh glow of television lights. This is the moment that will define him and perhaps define Britain for a generation. He opens his mouth to speak, and then the feed cuts out. Across the nation, televisions go black for several seconds. When the picture returns, there is confusion, shouting, movement behind Farage. Advisors rush to the podium, security steps in, and the screen goes to static. Within minutes,